Yeah. So when we do this draft, we're doing a top 10 rotating between Bennett and I. So we both pick 5 coaches that'll do the top 10 best coaches in a college basketball draft. But the criteria is very important. We're not picking right now who's the best coach. We're not saying Coach K is the best coach. We're not saying resume-wise, Jim Boeheim's been around since the dawn of the 19th century, and he's the best coach. We're saying if you have a draft, you've started a new program, and every single 358 Division I men's basketball head coaches are available to be drafted, who are you picking to start your program with? So there's a couple things that are going to be factored in. How has, a coach been able to build a program? At least this is what I'm using as criteria. Bennett might be different. We both have different big boards. It'll be interesting to see how we kind of differ. But kind of how have they been able to build a program? What's their kind of longevity, but not necessarily Coach K longevity? What is their age? How many years left do you think they have in them? So a lot of different things. And so it's not who's the best coach. It's not who has the best resume of all time. It's you're starting a program. It's a draft. Who do you got? So I flipped a coin earlier today. You got first pick. So why don't you you get this thing going?
I'm glad that you gave that to me, because if you had said that you flipped a coin earlier today and you had the first pick, I would have been a little bit stunned there. I would have, maybe been a little flustered.
Well, I think our first picks are going to differ. So Bennett Conlon, What's your program name? First, what's your program name?
I didn't know we had to name our program. The Bennett Conlon Institute of Technology, but we're going to be just strictly a journalism school.
All right, so BCIT,
but it's just journalism that we're teaching.
Perfect. So BCIT, you're now on the clock.
Okay, so I think the thing for me is age plays a pretty tremendous factor here. I was looking for someone that probably could give me a decade or so. So like Coach K, you're out because you've got like 2 months left, right? That's a coach because he's going to retire. So like that kind of stuff, it takes some of those guys you mentioned, Boeheim, who I don't know that I want Boeheim anyway. We're not running a 2-3. We're not running a goddamn 2-3 zone. So that takes him out, but there's still a lot of really good coaches. Even that, I think like a Rick Pitino and a Tom Izzo, you're looking at 69 years old, 67 years old. I did not disqualify them because I think that they could give you 5+ years, which is, build a solid foundation for your guys for the BCIT. So first pick, I'm going to go Mark Few. Mark Few, Gonzaga head coach. He's 59 years old. You look at his resume, and this was some of the debate too, is there was another Gonzaga take from like a bracketologist out there, one of the many ones. I think he's got 5,000 Twitter followers or whatever. But he tweets out that Gonzaga hasn't won national titles in part because they're not battle tested in conference play. I'm glad that we're this close to March Madness where these takes are getting recycled. This is a sign that the tournament is close, but a horrible take that doesn't make any sense. People are like, well, it's not even a take. It's kind of true. It's like, no, it's not. It doesn't make any sense. Like, they've been one of the best teams in college basketball. They played in 2 national championships since the 2016-2017 season. And they would have had a team that was probably gearing up to make a legitimate run at the national title in 2020, 2021, when COVID ended that season. So I don't know. I have a hard time understanding that argument about Gonzaga not being good. But he took over as the head coach for the 1999-2000 season. They made the NCAA tournament every single year. And they were kind of building the program where some of the win totals were inflated early on, in part because of the conference competition. Like, I get it. But they were really good, made the tournament every year. There was some round of 32s, a couple Sweet 16s mixed in there, some first round exits for sure. Totally get that. They didn't make an Elite Eight until the 2014-15 season. But since then, the worst they've done is a Sweet 16. They've had 2 runner-up finishes. They had a team last year that nearly ran the table the entire year. It was unbelievable. We're blowing teams out. Like, Mark Few is a tremendous basketball coach. He's achieved a ton there. I mean, you can look and maybe say he had the DUI this year where he was suspended a few games or something, I guess, if you want to factor in like the classiness of the person leading your program or whatever. But like, aside from that, he seems like he's got a pretty good history. He wins a lot of games. He also, another thing is like, he's grown from getting some maybe unheralded guys and turning them into really good players to getting like the best recruits in the country, some of the best transfers too. And I think that certainly matters. So if I'm starting a program, I think Mark Few at 59 years old, you're getting probably at least a good decade out of him. Makes a lot of sense to me.
All right. I really like that breakdown. And this whole time you've been talking, I've gone through. I think I got the second overall pick for Fitzpatrick University. FU.
Very good. I like that.
I don't want to show my hand on who my other picks were.
Okay.
Because they might still come up. Number 2 overall pick. I'm on the clock. Like you said, I'm factoring in age. I'm factoring in, have they been able to keep their program near the top of Division I for a while? What do they do it with? Are they able to do it with fantastic recruits like Mark Few? And are they able to, build a program from kind of nothing and create these fantastic players? With the second overall pick, FU is taking Jay Wright, Villanova head coach, 60 years old. I think he has another 10, 15 years in him. He's been fantastic. He's been Team USA head coach. He's 630 and 280 all time, has a darn good record in the tournament at 30 and 14, 24 and 15 in the Big East tournament. He's never let Villanova fall underneath 30 in KenPom outside of his first 3 years when he was building that program. And that 30 year was in 2019. I believe that's coming off of the national championship in 2018. And then what he did at Hofstra before he even got to Villanova in 2002, 1997 to 2001, took Hofstra from a low 100 KenPom team to a top 75 KenPom team. Really like what he did, and not to mention who he's coached. I mean, he's coached DiVincenzo, Archie Diakadu. I completely mispronounced his name. Kyle Lowry. I mean, who he's been able to recruit to Villanova, and then also the fact that not big names he's been able to recruit to Villanova and then create a team that is consistently a top 25 Big East team.
I think that's solid. I will say for the draft analysts out there, I think he was the head coach of like a World Games team. Hey, he wasn't coaching the NBA Big Boys as the head coach, although he has been the assistant of like that Olympic national team. But like his credentials are absurd. Yeah. So I think he was one that was a legitimate first option for me. And then I ended up going with Mark Few just because I feel like we got a shot to make some things happen there. Jay Wright also has the 2 national titles.
Yes.
Which is, he does have that over Mark Few, and that's the one thing that's off Few's resume is he does not have a national title.
Which you could argue Jay Wright has that because he's playing in a tougher conference. And,
they're battle-tested, Jack.
He gets battle-tested every year in the Big East. You just don't get that in a 4-bid WCC league. It's also we can talk about bad WCC takes later. All right. BCIT. Third pick, you're on the clock.
Third pick. This one I do think I go Tony Bennett here. So
really?
I think the age factors in quite a bit for me. I won't lie to you there. But he's 52. He has a national title. I think the thing for me is that, like, if I'm starting a program, what I like with Tony Bennett is that he can kind of develop the guys, is where he might not be getting stars, but, like, they're going to get a lot out of him, which I think is why UVA fans say he's, quote unquote, the best coach in the country. I also think he's one that, like, represents the program well, which we want to factor that in. That's another big one, and kind of where Jay Wright's up there too. It wasn't necessarily a lock for me in this spot. I just feel like he's one that's going to develop him, and you could take him pretty much anywhere, and I think he would find a way to have success with those teams. And you start to look at, like, some of the things he's done is unbelievable. Like, I think they finished top 4 in the ACC, and it's like every year, or top 5 in the ACC every year since 2011-12, which is, like, super impressive. They've had great teams. They do have the loss to a 16 seed, which I don't think you can ignore. Like, some of their NCAA tournament appearances have been, super underwhelming, where they lost that one. They had an Elite Eight where they were kind of beaten up on Syracuse and choked late in the game because they couldn't handle a press, didn't make the Final Four. But then to come back after losing to UMBC the next year, win a national title helps his resume and all that good stuff a lot. Also, his recruiting's gotten better, I think. Now that he's proven himself a little bit and gotten to the national title level, where, like, they got a Trey Murphy as a transfer who became an NBA draft pick. Their class next year is loaded at Virginia. So I think he makes a lot of sense there and is one that, like, if you're the athletic director of a new program and you hire Tony Bennett, you can go to sleep pretty easily knowing that like we're going to get better and like the fans are going to love him because he's just nice and good at coaching. So that was kind of the logic with that one.
I really like that. Fun fact, just a little peek behind the curtain. Tony Bennett wasn't even on my top 10. He wasn't even on my big board.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Fourth pick, FU on the clock.
Yep.
You ready for this one? This might be a little bit of a boat rocker.
Okay.
We're going Tommy Lloyd. Arizona.
Bro, get out of here. Stop it. Is this his first year as a head coach?
Okay, no, it's not. Maybe he'll be my next one. Your reaction changed my mind.
That's not how drafts work.
They're taking back the card and we're switching.
What?
Okay, I'll keep it to Tommy Lloyd. Keep it Tommy Lloyd. He's brand new at Arizona, first year. I don't know. I like what he's done. I think Arizona's a real solid team. It's probably a prisoner of the moment pick. You know what it is? He really impressed me at the combine. He's a combine warrior. And so I just really got locked in on him. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit because he probably wasn't even on your top 10. But
yeah, this was
the big thing, he's 47, comes from Gonzaga. He was a Gonzaga longtime assistant under Mark Few. So it's kind of like you're taking Mark Few if you really squint one eye and stand on your head and really look at it that way. But what he's done with Arizona, they're a top tempo team with one of the most efficient offenses and one of the most efficient defenses. Yeah, they might be doing it with Sean Miller's recruits and everything, but I think what he's laying a really good foundation, and I think he's going to take Arizona to where it needs to be. And I'm going to steal him with FU before he can get that going.
Yeah, he's a great coach, and I think he was like the coach in waiting, essentially, right? They were going to give him. I think he had an actual contractual obligation or a contract that was like guaranteeing he would be the Gonzaga head coach. So he's got really good credentials as an assistant. Only the way he hasn't even finished his first year as a head coach is why I was surprised why he took him this early. But given his age and what he's done so far, it's hard.
I think that's the main thing. His age. He's 47. Like, you lock him in and you have him for 20 years.
I think that's fair. I think that's not a bad pick. Surprised me.
It's a surprising pick. I
think that's one that could age well. I think you look at a few years down the line, I think he might be considered a top tier coach for sure.
Appreciate it. All right. Number 5 pick, BCIT, who only teaches journalism.
Yeah.
You're on the clock.
We're sticking with the class. We're sticking with the classiest guys in college basketball. We're taking Scott Drew.
Wow.
Scott Drew.
Wow.
He's got a national title to his name. He turned around when he took over Baylor. They were in like sanctions and yes. So all these horrible things going on. They were in probation and all this stuff. It was a program that was in shambles, so to speak. Took him about 4 years. Then in the 5th year, he got him going. Has had them really good since. They've missed the tournament a couple of times, some NIT appearances, including an NIT championship, but they also have a pair of Elite Eights, a pair of Sweet 16s. So I guess they have 3 of those because you got to count the national championship season, checks the boxes for all of those too. But that was his only Final Four. That was his first Final Four with Baylor. But even with that, they've been really consistent under him. They've been successful. I was impressed and still am impressed, even though they've gotten blown out by Kansas recently. Got how good they still were this year and still are this year. They're still a solid team, and I think they got a chance to win some tournament games. So I think they're built to last. I like the fact that he's, widely respected as a coach in person. I think he makes a lot of sense as someone to add, and he's just been doing it way longer than I think people might realize. Where like he took over Valparaiso in 2002, led them to the NIT. Like that's 20-ish years as a head coach. I don't think you can put a price on that experience, especially when the team you're going up against just drafted Tommy Lloyd, who doesn't have that head coaching experience. No, but I do think his experience puts him up there. And the fact that he's 51, like we talk a little bit about Coach K and like Roy Williams retired and maybe the changing of the guard a little bit with the top coaches. People talk about in the ACC a lot, but I think nationally too, like I think Tony Bennett and Scott Drew are going to be around having really good teams for a really long time. So that was kind of the logic, and I'm pretty happy with those 3 guys.
I like it. All right. My 6th pick for FU, whether we're on the clock for the 6th pick. I was going to take this guy at 4.
Okay.
But I jumped the gun with Tommy Lloyd. I'm going Bill Self. I'm going Bill Self.
That's a good one.
Slid to me at 6. You can't blink on him again. You can't let him potentially fall to 8 because he might not be there at 8. So you take him at 6 where he is. He's 59. We all know, head coach of Kansas, nearly unbeatable at Allen Fieldhouse, nearly unbeatable overall, one of the best teams in the country. I don't think Kansas ever has dipped below 27th in KenPom. My worry kind of with Bill Self is he inherited a really good Kansas program. He inherited a really good Illinois program. And the only time he's ever really had to build a team was in 1998 when he took over for Tulsa. They were 98th in KenPom. And then he built them into 7th nationally, which is fantastic. They got to the Elite 8. And everywhere he goes, he hasn't missed the NCAA tournament from 2019 to 1999. He had never missed the NCAA tournament. 2020, they made it. 2021, they made it as well.
He's a good coach.
Well, I guess sorry, it messed me up there. 2020, there was COVID, so no one made the tournament, but hasn't missed the tournament since.
They were maybe the national title favorite that year, though. Like, they were really, really good.
Yeah. So, sorry about that mistake. I was quickly looking at KenPom about that.
No, but they were absolutely an elite team, even though they don't get credit for what probably, could have been a legit run.
I'd argue Dayton was probably the national title favorite. Ain't
that would have been
stopping
sweet.
Obi Toppin, but watching those guys square off in the national championship would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, just a really good team. Yeah, Bill Self's a good one. He's had some really successful teams, and I feel like people credit a lot of it sometimes as just like being Kansas, but he's a pretty good coach, can recruit. And
it's weird people credit, because I agree. I think a lot of people credit, it's Kansas. It could coach itself. You just said Kansas off of, brand alone. But people don't really do that with Coach K, or they didn't really do it with Roy Williams at UNC. And I'd argue that those brands, too, could coach themselves.
Yeah, I think Coach K should get more credit because he kind of built that brand. Whereas Roy Williams maybe inherited a UNC that was a little more legit. But yeah, I mean, once you get to a certain point, and some of it's like the same with like Mark Few, once you get to a certain point, like you're reeling in studs constantly, and they know you're a good, and like you have a baseline level of coaching, like it seems reasonable to kind of hang in there. And that's kind of what's interesting about Duke a little bit. Not that that really matters, but they've had some years where like they've kind of floundered up and down. Like last year, they stunk. Didn't make the tournament last year. They were not a very good team. They've kind of come back this year, but they've had some ebbs and flows.
All right, 7th pick, BCIT. You're on the clock.
Yeah, some good options. Some really good options here. I go back and forth. This is a tough one. I think I'm just going to take John Calipari.
Woo!
Because he can build teams, build programs. The thing is, we might have some wins vacated, right? There might be some quote unquote NCAA violations that we have, and he's had some of those during his career, that's for sure. But other than that, just feel pretty good about it, man. He wins a lot, and obviously last year was kind of a weird year where they really sucked. But like, he's recruits better than pretty much anybody. He's won in a lot of places, which is probably because he was handing out a bag. But I don't care.
Yeah, how do you get Derrick Rose to Memphis?
Exactly. We already have Tony Bennett and Scott Drew, classiest of class. I might as well add Calipari, right? So I think he's got one national title. That's kind of the one thing you can point to with him too, is like a lot of winning with like not a lot of national titles given the talent level. But if you can have someone who's bringing in a bunch of 5-stars, like chances are more often than not, your team's going to make the tournament and like go to a Sweet 16 or whatever. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think Calipari is one that if you're starting a program, he's 62 years old, it makes a lot of sense just because I think if the criteria was like, I want you to win a national championship in a new program in like 3 years, he might be my first guy. Because I think he's going to land a bunch of recruits and find a way to get you close to that.
Yeah. I think that's a really good pick.
Thanks, man.
I wouldn't have gone there, but I think that's a good pick. For the 8th pick, FU is taking Bruce Pearl.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you. So in 2019, he takes Auburn to the Final Four. In 2020, maybe had another Final Four in him, but had a couple tournament wins, but COVID stops it. And then last year's a little bit of a down year, 13-14 in the SEC, not great, and then just bursts onto the scene this year, rattles off that huge winning streak. They just lost last night. We're recording on Wednesday, last night to Arkansas in overtime in a fantastic game. But Auburn is a darn good basketball team. And not to mention what Bruce Pearl did at Tennessee, taking him to the Sweet 16 twice, taking him to the Elite 8 once, getting them all the way up to 13th nationally in KenPom, and then built a little bit of something from 2002 to 2005 at Milwaukee. Overall, I just think he's a really good coach. He might not be, he's not your Calipari. He's not your Mark Few. He's not necessarily going to have you in the top 10 every single year in and year out. But I think he's going to build a really, really good culture. He's going to get the really good guys. He doesn't deal with those one and dones. That's ruining college basketball. He's bringing in guys who buy into the program. They're going to redshirt their first year. You know what I'm saying? And they're going to stay there for
Jabari Smith, though, right?
Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, except it's fine, whatever. No, but
he's a good
I
coach.
think Bruce Pearl's a really good culture builder. He's not necessarily going to get you, he's not going to get you 2 losses in a year. There's going to be a couple blemishes. There might be a couple of down years where the recruiting didn't go as well, but Auburn just handed him a lifetime contract for a reason. He's built up 2 really good SEC programs in Tennessee and Auburn. Built up Milwaukee to get it to the Sweet 16 in 2005. Give me Bruce Pearl at 8.
It's a good pick. This is a tough one here for my 5th and final pick. Part of me really wanted to take kind of an older guy with a Pitino or an Izzo, because Rick Pitino showed that he can go to Iona and have them be like a real fun team immediately. Another one where we might vacate some wins. There might be some shady activity on campus, but Rick didn't know about it, right?
Oh, all the assistants.
Yeah, it's just the assistants who are meddling in his life. So that was one that did stand out. He is 69 though, so you're probably getting 5 years or something, maybe more out of that. We'll see how long he ends up wanting to go. The pick though that I'm going to finish off with is Chris Beard. I'm a big Chris Beard guy.
Ooh, great pick.
Thanks,
great
man.
Pick.
We've talked before about how different things could be if Texas Tech had beaten Virginia in the national championship. Chris Beard would already have a national title. But the thing for me is he's 48 and he's won everywhere. He had success during a 1-season stint with it was McMurray. They're called McMurray Warhawks in the NCCAA. I don't know if it's community college. I've got to double check on exactly what that is. I don't know.
This is I completely
clear.
Beard, Chris Beard.
I think it's community college. Yeah, this is Chris Beard. But anyway, he was there. Then he goes Division II with Angelo State. His final year, he's only there for 2 years. They're 28-6. Then he goes to Arkansas Little Rock for 1 year. They go 30-5, win an NCAA tournament game, 17-3 in the Sun Belt. And then he's only there for 1 year before Texas Tech snags the guy. They've had a winning record every year. They were Elite 8, 2017-18. Then they lost to Virginia in overtime in the national championship in 2018-19. The next year, they were kind of bubble-ish, I guess you could say, when the tournament was canceled. Then they made the round of 32 last year. Mac McClung and company. Now he's at Texas. They're pretty solid this year. I mean, they're not. I wouldn't say Texas is a national title contender, but he added a bunch of really talented transfers. They have a lot of talent. Just got a home win over Kansas. They have beaten Tennessee at home, but they got a good group of wins kind of forming together here. Their losses have been reasonably competitive. So I like what he's done. I like that he's young. I like his energy. I like they play really good defense at a consistent level. I think maybe more importantly than anything, he's won at so many different levels with different programs and can recruit. Feels like a guy that maybe I should have even taken earlier given his age and success. But yeah, I think he's one of the best coaches in college basketball. I think it's only a matter of time until he cuts down the nets with someone. We'll see how long he stays at Texas or if he wants to maybe move somewhere else eventually.
That's a fantastic pick. I'm mad at myself for not thinking about him. Can't believe he slipped all the way down to 9.
Yeah, kind of wild given his track record at multiple places.
And with the 10th pick, FU has a lot of options on the board still, and no one's and this is it. So do I take someone, that's proven, that's kind of a blue blood coach that, people might know about, or do I go the young up and coming coach that's had a few really good seasons at maybe a smaller school that I just want to shine a spotlight on him,
Okay.
Which way am I going? Which way? With the 10th pick, I'm going Todd Golden.
I kind of like this one.
36 years old, San Francisco head coach for the last 3 seasons. In 2019, he got his Dons. Yeah, got his Dons. I always mix them up with fun fact, he played at St. Mary's as a guard. So that's where I get the Dons and Gales mixed up. That's why it always happens.
Exactly.
But with San Francisco, took him in his first year in 2020, a tough coach. Well, I guess COVID hadn't really hit yet, but bad finish. Took him to be 22-12, got all the way up to 74th in KenPom. Last year in 2021, a little bit of a back step, 11-14, 93rd in KenPom. But then this year, they're sitting at 19-6, 40th in KenPom. They're looking like a really, really good WCC school. They have wins over Davidson, UAB, Fresno State, wins over Santa Clara, BYU, a bad loss to Portland off of a back-to-back, an away and a home game, 1-point loss, and the second of that back-to-back to Portland. So we won't even discuss that. But Todd Golden, before he gets to San Francisco, he's on Bruce Pearl's staff, so you see a little bit of that connection there. And then he also played in Israel, a lot of good stuff. So he knows what he's doing on the basketball court in case you want to, an ex-player. He's a kind of that player's coach. And then before he was elevated to head coach at San Francisco, he was an assistant working with their defensive. He was kind of like the defensive specialist, the defensive coach, the defensive coordinator. And during that time, San Francisco had one of the best nationally ranked defenses. So I like what he's doing. 36 years old, so young, one of the youngest coaches in Division I college basketball. Could I have gone somewhere else and probably had a little bit more of a resume, a little bit more of a proven track record? Yeah, I could have, but I think this is a fun one. Todd Golden, San Francisco, 36 years old, 10th pick. Give it to me. I think he can do a really good job at building a program while also building up his resume.
Yeah, 11-14 last year, but one of those 11 wins was a win over Virginia. I remember that one well. Really good coach, young, interesting pick, but one that I like. Should we highlight the teams of 5?
Yeah.
All right, my boys. I've got Mark Few, Tony Bennett, Scott Drew. Then I added John Calipari and Chris Beard.
I got Jay Wright, Tommy Lloyd.
The Young Guns.
Bill Self, Bruce Pearl, Todd Golden.
I like it. It's a fun group.
It is. It's a young group. I went a little bit younger. That was my strategy. And thus concludes the.
Are there any honorable mentions that you had that you were maybe considering that were close?
Yes. For the 10th pick, I almost went Travis Steele from Xavier.
Really? Interesting. Yeah. I had Pitino and Izzo mention them. Mick Cronin is one that I think is sneaky good. He's only 50.
Yeah.
Had some success at Cincinnati, and UCLA looks pretty good. Matt Painter was another one that was like, all right, maybe he's 51. And then the one that I thought would be funny but didn't want to do because we were taking it seriously was Will Wade. Will Wade's a gangster. He's had success at multiple spots. The issue is that's like you're getting violations and you're like maybe making the round of 32 with your violations.
You're getting violations with the FBI.
I mean,
it's not like NCAA violations. It's FBI wiretap.
So I thought that was an interesting one. And then if you're looking older, you can even look at like a Rick Barnes who's had a ton of success over there.
I was thinking of Rick Barnes. See, my thoughts were like either I have him for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like a 60-year-old coach, which is the reason I went, Wright, Pearl, Self.
Sure.
And then my other thinking was I can have him for 40 years. So let me go ultra young.
And the other one that I thought would have been interesting that did not do was Porter Moser.
Yeah, good coach.
Really
I just haven't seen. I say this. I haven't seen enough as I pick Tommy Lloyd. I haven't seen enough of him at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I guess you might want to see more there. But Bill Loyola, Chicago, he's been coaching as a head coach for a long, long time, been around the business, So I thought he was an interesting one. I was trying to think if there are any others that popped up. I think those are the main guys. But yeah, I like some of those picks. I like some of those guys. But you didn't even go with like Like a Nico Medved. What is it? Medved.
Oh, Medved from Colorado State.
Yeah, I thought he might be in the mix for you. You're a big Mountain
Nico
West
Medved,
guy.
yeah.
I thought you might go Mountain West instead of WCC at some point.
No, I'm going WCC, baby.
We had a couple. So what do we have? 2 WCC guys then with Mark Few and Todd Golden.
2 WCCs, a Big East, an ACC. ACC, a lot of SEC.
That's interesting. The other obvious pick would have been Josh Pastner, but I passed on that this time around.
All right.
Just for the quotes.
And thus concludes the 2022 college basketball coach draft hosted by the DRF College Sports Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.